So for our project, we decided to do Python. I'm going to give just an overview of the language. Python is a very well-known language due to its simple syntax and easy readability of code. And because of this, it's often recommended as a first language for beginners. Python has many uses in today's world. Software developers sometimes use it as a supporting language to help build their products. It's also used commonly for web and internet development due to the multiple frameworks and library options it offers. It's also used to create GUIs due to its Tkinter package, and I'm going to show a demo of this later on. Finally, one of the most important aspects of Python is that everything is object-oriented. What this means is that everything created, for example a variable, is created as an object. And just to quickly show this, I'm going to go to my idle shell. If I do type and say I give it an integer value, it shows that it is of class int. And if I do give it a string value, it shows that it's of class string. So moving on to the syntax, as you can see, the print statement is very simple. One thing to note, however, is in versions 3 and above, it's actually changed where you have to include the parentheses around the string value. One important thing to note is the variables. In Python, you don't have to specify the type of variable, such as int or double. All you need is the name and the value. In terms of loops, as you can see, the for loop looks pretty similar to the for each loop found in other languages. And finally, like F#, indentation matters in Python. If you don't indent, the compiler will usually give an indentation error.
Alright. I was going to give you a quick preview of the object-oriented side of Python using a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire program based off of the TV show. This is our lifeline class, so just like the TV show, we have lifelines for each player. We have a 50-50 check, and you can call a friend. One thing I wanted to highlight here is this self keyword. This is always going to be the first parameter in most of your methods for a class, and this will be like kind of like a keyword like this in Java, where it points to this instance of your class. So you'll notice here itself is the first one here, here, here. Now we also wanted to highlight just how do you create a subclass. And this pass keyword here will show Python or show how you're running that this is the child subclass for a parent subclass lifeline, and you pass in the parent lifeline right here. Now use 50-50 as a method inside of our subclass, and here we call self.5050check, and 50-50 check is in our parent class here. And so now we're just trying to say that this instance of use lifeline can call 50-50 check was in our parent class. Now it's just to show you our player class. Here I wanted to show you that we have a lifeline for each player. We import the class, then we declare it here just like this. And another thing I want to show you is that these three specialized functions in Python, init is kind of like our constructor, and just like we said earlier, self is going to be the first parameter, with starting balance being the balance of what the player starts with. Now delete is just what you'd guess, our destructor, and self. Now it prints something out, but also at the end of it deletes the player object that we're going to create. Length allows us to return some value that will act as the length for that class, and because Python wants to stay very general, length is anything that we define it to be. So it doesn't have to be a number, it could be something else as well. And just to show you our main class here, one thing I want to highlight is that in our player class we forgot to give our player a name. But here we declare our player 1, then we can set our attribute and say, hey, let's give this guy a name attribute, give it a name in our player 1. And we get the player name here, and we'll print it out, and we'll show you that in our demo really quick. So I'm going to enter my name. Here we go. That's my name. Ignore the weird characters there. But just to show you how the lifelines work, this first question, which insect shorted out an early supercomputer? Let's say I don't know what it is. Let's use a lifeline. I'm going to phone a friend. He gives me the answer is A. I enter it in. There we go. Now we also get our current earnings and our questions answered. This is our length, and this shows what it is. Now let's say I don't want to use a lifeline. I just want to answer it. There we go. It'll work once again.
Now I'm just going to go give it a simple demo of creating a GUI, and I'm going to create this calculator. I have most of the skeleton code here, but just to start out, the first thing we need to do is import the tkinter library. So to do that, I do from tkinter import star. And these are just the different functions for that the GUI has, like add, subtract, multiply. To create the actual GUI, we need to create an object. And so to do that, I create my object, my GUI, and call the tk class. Now, if I want to give my GUI a certain size, I can do that by doing my GUI dot geometry, and I can give it a certain dimension. And notice the use of these single quotes. I can also give my GUI a title. Now, these three variables here are used to hold the user input, except the last one actually gives you the result. And they have to be string variables. Now, I have the code for creating the GUI, so I'm just going to quickly go over it. So to create a label, what you need to do is you create an object. Here, I call it numinfo. I call label, I send in my GUI object, and I can give it whatever text I want. And if I can position these objects by doing .grid. So I created three labels here, and now what I want to do is create a text field. To do that, it's the same approach. I create an object, and now I call entry, and again I send in my GUI object, and to get the input from the text field, what I have to do is text variable. This collects the input from the text field and it stores it into the string variable that I created earlier. So I create my two text fields here to get the two numbers. Now I create a button. Again, it's the same idea. So I call button, send in my GUI object, give it a text, whatever I want it to be. Now to give the button some functionality, what you have to do is command. What this does is command equals and the name of a function. So in this case, I'm doing add. So it will add the two numbers. So I created my other buttons for my other functions, and I get the result, and I created another text field to print it out. And one last thing to note here is at the end you have to do your object.main to actually create the GUI itself. Now let's run this, hopefully it will run with no issues. Awesome. So as you can see, this GUI is created. So if you enter any two numbers, you press add, it will give the result here. You can subtract it, you can multiply it, or you can divide it. So this just shows how to create a simple GUI in Python.
The last thing we're going to show you is just to formalize the idea of you don't have to declare the type of a variable. It's called dynamically scripting. And so here we give a variable a value of 5. We print it out. We give a string variable of hello world, print it out, and we say, and our output is going to be 5 and hello world. Now many of you are probably saying you can't do this in Java, and here's the reason why. This chart beautifully explains this. So we declare a variable in Java, we give it a type, then a name, and then that object that creates an object, and the object will give it a value which is of some sort of type, but this type must match what we declared as earlier. Now in Python, it's just given a name. It becomes an object, it has some sort of value, and it has some sort of type. And that's basically how that works. Thank you guys for listening in.